the show, Michael Small. Don't be scared. My co-host, he will be joining us shortly. But right now, he's on a minor assignment. This morning, we are in an interesting position in the world, I would say. Minister of National Security is urging recruits for the Defense Force to not terrorize the communities. And while normally I would find his words somewhat interesting, somewhat ironic, I would take the opportunity to criticize him. In this case, I do think we need to reassess things a little bit better. And that is because we live in a world between the tail end of a pandemic, maybe, and a war that's affecting our global trade and economy even further and upending probably everybody's plans for the year moving forward. We do have to wonder what is in it for TNT. And at first I was very much cautious, not very optimistic, but I did have a conversation yesterday afternoon that caused me to reevaluate my assessment, because yesterday I poo-pooed on Keaton's good news, but today, well, we have somebody who was not able to join us early in the week, but she's here to tell me that I might have been wrong, and that is Mrs. Karen Inez Teixeira. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning to you. I hope you're going to be joined soon with Keaton Sean, but good morning to you, Sean, and of course to your viewers, and hopefully we'll be joined with Keaton. I'm always happy to be with you.
So yesterday, Karen, I mean, we were having a discussion, and you know, the Prime Minister, he did warn that the energy prices are not necessarily going to mean anything too grand. Don't get our hopes up. He tried to, he was trying to make sure our expectations weren't too high until we actually see how things unfold. But now, weeks later, with the price of energy as it is, it represents certain challenges, but it also represents certain opportunities that might be there for us. Opportunities that you pointed out to me that got me thinking, you know, maybe for TNT, unfortunately, this unfortunate set of circumstances might not be too bad, and it might actually, unfortunately, be maybe it might solve some of our problems, maybe it might just be a band-aid, but it's not necessarily a cure. With regards to the price of energy and what it means both for the increased production, all of a sudden, when we couldn't increase production for a year, but also the price of oil and what that means now for the mathematical equations of cost benefits on the refinery that could not have been sold for a year.
Yes, you're quite right. I think the situation, to be fair, even the Prime Minister himself is a rather dynamic one. And, you know, the Ukraine-Russia war, whatever, special operations as Putin calls it, it's not only that they are the 40% producer of oil in the world, and they supply the European Union countries with about 40% of their natural gas requirements. But it's also brought forth the fragility of the whole argument that we have been hearing about going into this green gas or green energy equation. And if you will notice two things, at least I thought about it, when Mr. Biden came on the scene, President Biden, one of the main areas that he had campaigned on, and one of the first things he did was appoint his committee that would be looking at green energy resources. And also he brought to an end the pipeline that was coming over what they call sacred lands from Canada through Alaska to it's part of the United States. Mm-hmm. The Keystone Project.
Yes.
So it brought forth the fragility of this whole argument that we are soon going to be, oil and gas are soon going to be, a thing of the past, left in the ground. And then, of course, what was very amusing at one level was that President Biden actually referred to Maduro as President Maduro. And of course, that signals that he was looking towards Venezuela, which has the highest supply of crude oil in the world, more than the other OPEC countries. So what I am saying in all of that is that the idea that this increase in oil and natural gas is going to be short term, I don't think it is. I don't think it is going to be so. I think there's a lot more to do before we can talk really about alternatives. And for that, Trinidad has benefited. And I don't want to say that Shell has suddenly had a change of thought, but we are reading that we're going to get much more gas than was expected. And that is a new phenomenon coming from Shell that had, and BPTT also, that had been involved in a lot of retrenchment and speaking about the natural gas revolution. But I think what we are seeing is that they're now saying that that's what they said, the technical issues that they were having have been resolved, so they're able to produce much more natural gas than they anticipated, which is coincidental with the price of natural gas going into 570, 574, and it doesn't appear it's going to change in a hurry. So I'm not saying that is suddenly the reason why the technical problems are no longer a technical problem, but there seems to be a connection. And if they're making that statement about increasing their production, they have their people reading the big picture. And I just want to say one other thing. A lot of emphasis is placed on the Ukraine-Russia war. Yes, what is, I think, more importantly, it showed that with all the talk from Germany and all the talk from all these European countries, they still need that natural gas from Russia. They still need it. So it exposed that as not being the reality. And also, what has happened now, it has given countries like ourselves and large international companies who have invested here and seem to be pulling out, it looks as though they're having second thoughts about coming too soon. So in the end, the prices have gone up, and it seems that we can expect greater production than was anticipated just a month or two ago.
Because in the current situation, now yesterday, or at least in the last 2 days preceding, it was reported that Russia might have eased off from their requirement for Europe to pay for natural gas in rubles. And then today it seemed as though Putin is maybe backtracking on that, because he is literally, it seems, looking to use the natural gas sales to try to prop up the value of his currency to prevent it from depreciating. Now, the economic validity of this strategy and all of the reasons he's doing it is not necessarily, the reasons are not necessarily all known perfectly, and the validity of the strategy I don't think is necessarily taken that seriously. Maybe it's a stopgap measure at best. However, what it could mean is that the gas flow from Russia, after 6 weeks of a conflict almost right next to where the pipeline would be sending the supply, might actually now be disrupted to the point where it might end. Maybe just temporarily, but it seems as though natural gas now, the demand for it from Europe, is causing all other potential sources to be put on the table, such as Venezuela, or even those sources where I guess last year it might not have been profitable or cost effective to extract the gas, but this year, given the circumstances, not only might it be cost effective, but it might be in dire need. As you said, Germany needs the gas. At the very least, they need something to hold them over until they could figure out a long-term solution. So what does it mean for us? It probably means that whatever gas that we have, which seemed as though it might have been losing value last year as everybody tried to move away from fossil fuels as much as possible, and the pipeline, the newer pipeline, Nord Stream 2 was coming online. But now that seems to be off the...
Nord Stream.
When Nord Stream 2, if Nord Stream 2 came online, the value of our natural gas might have bottomed out to the point where our energy sector might have been in dire straits with regards to providing us the revenue and the foreign exchange we needed. But now, I think I agree with you. I don't see this change with Venezuela as being a short-term change. And if that's going to be a long-term relationship, at the very least in the next year or two, our natural gas, the price of it in the world might remain high because Venezuela has to fix all their infrastructure problems before they could start pumping out fossil fuels in any significant amount of quantity.
Two points with that, which I know I didn't have enough time to digest it completely, but I was always of the view that when it came to the natural gas and the arrangement, of course, contracts with Shell and BPTT, the main players, 30% of the natural gas went to the trains for production for LNG, and the rest would go to NGC as the aggregator, buy it from the companies. They had a small investment, I think, in train. I mean, not made one in train 1 and some in train 4, but I think they've consolidated it into 3 trains. But in any event, that the natural gas, a significant part, would then be sent to NGC as the aggregator. They'd buy it from these BPTT, Shell, and they also would be an investor, so they'd benefit. And then they would then put up a markup, which is their profit, and then sell it to the downstream. What I learned just before we came on, was just in today's newspaper, so I didn't get a chance enough to digest it. But apparently there was an agreement with a US-based company, EOG, where they have been selling their natural gas directly to the Point Lisas industrial estate, which is based on obviously some contractual relationship they had made with the government. And what is noteworthy is that while their prices were fairly low in 2019, 2020, they have shot up. And that is clearly in a response to what is going on. So what you're seeing is a lot of the natural gas. And you remember, it's not only natural gas prices that have gone up. Ammonia, urea, fertilizers, methanol, which is used for the natural gas, to use the alternatives. Those prices have shot up, and we have a significant investment in all of those petrochemical industries. So we are making money on that end in the petrochemical industries. But I wasn't aware that EOG had a special relationship where they didn't have to sell their gas to NGC and then NGC sell it to the petrochemical. They were able to do it directly with some of the plants. But the message is all good for us. At the end of the day, even with Paria having to buy refined fuel, also now you're hearing the talk come back on the table about the refinery, because and also I think I hope I'm not overstating it, and I'm not proven wrong on it, but I see that Nikwan, the main problem with Nikwan, apart from whatever structural issues that arose, the Nikwan can't operate unless it has gas, because they are gas to liquid. And one of the main issues, of course, was this minister's 20% they were depending on, whilst the Point Lisas wanted gas too.
Yes. Now
that this situation is arising, it may very well be that the problem that Nikwan was facing with regard to having a certain supply of natural gas, which is only part of their problem, may also be resolved. So there are a lot of positive things, I think, for the government, even as one person who's very well, knowledgeable about the industry said to me, that even if they continue to subsidize the fuel, diesel and the transport fuel in Trinidad, as we have over the years, even if we continue, given the high prices we're looking at and the increase in production in oil. Oil production just a little while ago was 40,000 barrels per day. It's gone from 60, now it's gone to actually 61,000, which is maybe not a lot more, but it's just letting you know that obviously they're not leaving that oil in the ground, and not leaving it in the ground, it is clearly benefiting Trinidad, not only in terms of the price, but obviously the amount. And then the starting back up of the refinery is also another indicator, in my view, that the government had said they never intended to shut it down completely. It was too many workers. It was overstaffed. Well, so they say WASA is, so they say TSTT is. But anyhow, maybe they moved a little too quickly. Not maybe, they did. But now it seems that the refinery is probably going to be a starter.
Well, I will say this. Now, we don't have to stick up in here, but I will say this. There's a big difference between operating a refinery at $40 to $50 a barrel and $100 to $120 a barrel. But we'll get into that after the break. When we come back, we'll be joined by our co-host. Stay tuned for more on this and other topics. This is Talking Point on WESN, your content capital.
We dare you to dream, to see beyond the struggle, to envision the possibilities, to live life with unlimited vision. Ferrera Optical supports you with complete eyewear starting at only $795. Let's make those dreams a reality. So book your visit via 227-7000, WhatsApp message 278-2878, or at FerreraOptical.com today. We dare you to keep going. Ferrera Optical says, don't limit your vision.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through. Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One on One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One on One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One on One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
If you live with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19 and has to self-isolate at home, take care of them from a distance and reduce their movement around the house. Give them space, a designated space, and open those windows. If you have to be in contact, mask up, both of you. If you work, stay home from work and don't go out. Not even to the grocery or pharmacy. And remember, no visitors allowed. Limit the contact to limit the spread.
The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point. So, as promised, we have my co-host, Mr. Keaton Shah. Keaton, and while you were not with us, we were talking about how the energy sector might actually end up still being a net positive for TNT, despite the fact the Prime Minister, of course, cautioned against it. With our fuel subsidy, our fuel imports, he was basically hedging expectations, maybe you could say. But now the sale of the refinery, something that seemed to have been more or less an impossibility last year, now when oil is over twice the price, things are a little bit different. Venezuela is now back in the good graces. You might even say that's hypocritical. And I mean, there is something that we did not touch on for the discussion so far, and that is our relationship with Guyana as well. And what does this mean moving forward as all of these things continue to change, as Russia's natural gas now to Europe seems to be more likely than yesterday to be cut, given the tensions in the region?
Well, first of all, good morning, Sean. Good morning, Karen. Thank you for holding the fort whilst I was absent. But in this particular conversation, there's so many factors, as you would have just pointed out. Curiosity, for me, one of the most interesting is the fact that the refinery might be operational again. A couple of weeks ago, the Minister of Finance indicated that they're looking to finalize this sale. They're still putting some paperwork in place in terms of the due diligence reports necessary in order to complete the sale. But it'll be interesting to see going forward because, as you would have pointed out, the United States shook hands with Venezuela a couple of weeks ago in relation to oil executives being released from being detained within Venezuela. And the United States said, well, diplomatic ties seem to have been good. And I don't know what that means for the long run, because with the shifting narratives of international politics and the international political economy, you never can tell. And especially with the United States, their diplomacy always seems to be a bit volatile. That may be a bit harsh, but that is the best way to describe it at this point. Our relationship with Guyana, in terms of a diplomatic relationship, that to me is still the interesting part of this, because it seems as though we have quite a decent relationship within the manufacturing sector and the private sector. But in terms of our diplomatic relationship and the oil and gas sector, that is also very key to this entire conversation. Does Trinidad and Tobago actually have more opportunity in terms of oil and gas production from purchasing oil from Guyana's waters? Now, of course, as you would have pointed out, Venezuela, the largest oil and gas reserves in the world. The largest oil and gas reserves in the world. And just to add to this, the United States yesterday, I'm not sure if you all touched on this, the United States yesterday decided to release, I think, over 180,000 barrels of reserves over the next couple of months, just to try and supplement the supply, which is unfortunately, because of this Russian-Ukrainian war, the price has gone up, but the supply has declined. As you know, Russia is the biggest supplier to Europe, oil and gas. I think 40% of Europe's supplies comes from Russia. So in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, though I think we contribute roughly 0.30% of the world's oil and gas, even though we're a small speck on the entire scale of things, in terms of our economies, there are a lot of positives. However, it all depends on how we now go about managing the situation. And if history tells us anything, well, buckle up, folks. We're in for a tough ride ahead. Karen, as pointed out, so many factors. I know that you were discussing this with Sean just before I came on. But it's hard to actually put a point on this as to, yes, we could benefit, and we think we should benefit. But other things such as the procurement legislation and the sale of the refinery, or whether or not the refinery will be jump-started again, all that now has to, and I don't know if Cabinet will be discussing this, but that certainly has to be on the cusp of their tongues at the next meeting that they have.
But I think I wouldn't say that the situation is volatile as much as it's dynamic. And that's why, it may not seem related, but that's why when they look at core inflation, they exclude two things. Food, which our inflation rate in food has gone to 9.6%, and they exclude energy because they're volatile. So we're looking every day at changing scenarios. And yes, you're right, the president, but he even had to admit he's not sure if that would make any difference. So at least 1 million gallons or barrels of oil per day for the next 6 months. but he didn't even seem hopeful that that would make a big difference. So he's playing his politics in his country, where people go into the fill up their car and they're paying 2 and 3 times what they were used to. But what it does tell you is that natural gas and oil are still alive and well. And you made a good point about Guyana. You know, I think, to me, let me start. I think it was absolutely out of place and unacceptable for the vice president of Ghana to make those comments about Trinidad. Absolutely. But I think what may have been irritating him, may have been a sort of poke in the bear, was the fact that we are talking about CARICOM and building this CARICOM union and working together, and you find it more reasonable and more advantageous, I don't know how, to go to Qatar to participate in an oil and energy conference when your neighbor is producing so much oil and so much, and sweet, they call it sweet light oil, which means it is much easier to refine because it does not have as much sulfur, has so much natural gas, and you are going to not attend that? I mean, that's a slap in the face, really. And that, to me, is an indication that unless you are the El Jefe of CARICOM, so it appears, that you are not interested in participating. That is the unfortunate message that can be sent there. So the vice president was absolutely wrong, but what we can take out of all of this, Keaton, is I think all the signs, it's not only the fact of the Ukraine war, because I thought that really brought everything to the fore. It's also the supply chain management problems that they're still having significantly, as well as we also, it's not only that, but a lot of countries are coming out of the COVID and they are manufacturing and they are still prepared not only to use natural gas, but to use coal. So you have to understand that the days of oil and natural gas, it appears, are still alive and well, and that is not going to go away in a hurry. And we just have to take advantage of the opportunities, because if we leave it in the ground, what use is it to us?
Certainly, and I just want to, just before we go back to my co-host, I just want to point out that, as you would have mentioned, the days of oil and gas seems to be alive, and the days of coal as well, because in terms of the production of electricity and energy, I mean, right now, 10% of the world's supply of electricity comes from wind or solar energy. Right now, 10%. But did you know that coal, the production of coal, the burning of coal for energy and electricity has skyrocketed?
I didn't know that it happened. I know that certain countries were criticizing, like the EU, Germany, France, America, for saying that they need to shut down coal production. They need to shut down coal generating plants because coal is very cheap energy that they had available to them. Right? And green energy is not yet reliable to say that you could transition 100%, right? For various reasons. The only zero carbon energy generation you could transition to 100% if you could afford it is nuclear. And that seems to be very unpopular for a whole host of other reasons that we could guess. The main thing I want to say is this. The problem that we face now is that these sorts of things, these are not short-term things that we could just change with the flip of a hat. Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline, these are long-term deals. Look how long they've been talking about that pipeline. Not just to build it, much less see any actual profit from it. And it's the same thing with the distribution networks for any other oil and gas producer. Now this conflict is basically causing everybody to have to try to figure out how to switch their entire distribution plan, who they're selling to. This is not like bread or cattle or fabric where you just put the ship in the other direction. There's more to it than that. You don't just buy more, find more to be buy. There's a lot of long-term deals that have to be reassessed with the upsetting of supply to Europe as Europe itself is trying to find more supply. Guyana and Venezuela now coming onto the market puts an interesting set of circumstances on it. Here's an interesting thing. Notice that as Putin is selling as much gas as he can to Europe, how much lobbying did he do in the international community to get the sanctions lifted off of Venezuela? And I have heard rumors, and I don't know how true it is, that a lot of the environmental demands politically in Western Europe, in North America, could have had lobby money supplied by Russia for strategic energy needs. And now we're seeing where it's a very interesting situation where the person that you're guarding against is who you're buying your natural gas from.
And to me, I think, interestingly enough, one of the players that has remained relatively quiet is Iran in this entire game of oil and gas as well. But I like your opinion, Sean, and I like your opinion, Karen. Do you think that the world could survive without Russian oil and gas? Do you think that the world has the capabilities to survive
you could go first,
without Russian oil and gas?
Who is the world? The world is Europe, huh?
Well, Europe
because
and the US.
You know that America is a net exporter of natural gas and oil. But I had to read another article, and I said they are net exporter of oil and gas. So what's the problem then if they're exporting it? Well, the problem is that when you look at the map of the United States, there are certain parts of the United States where, yes, they are exporting oil and gas, but there are huge parts of the United States where they are still importing natural gas and oil. So while the big picture is that they are net exporter, the reality is that they too still continue to need the import of oil and gas for their energy and their manufacturing industry. And especially since Biden, he used as one of his platforms, and which cost the Democrats, I think, largely losing to Trump, was the coal industry. The persons who worked in the coal industry feeling that this green industry, they would have put them out of jobs. So Biden has to really make sure that he has a viable alternative to ensure that those same persons in Pennsylvania and all the other, Michigan, etc., have an alternative. But at this point in time, I don't think we're going to see in the end Russia. We're going to need, look at Ghana. Ghana, there are so many people rushing to Ghana. It's like the gold rush of the United States. They know that the oil and gas days are way from over.
Well, certainly, and I want to add some context to this entire story as to tell you just how prices around the world have gone up. I mean, in the United Kingdom now, if you were to go fill up your car, or let me say not fill up, if you were to fill your car to 3/4 of a tank, 3/4 of a tank, this morning it's going to cost you roughly 80 Great British pounds to fill your car to 3/4. Which, when you translate it to TT dollars, is 712 TT and 95 cents. 713 TT dollars, 3/4 of a tank in the United Kingdom this morning.
I mean, an hour gas subsidy. Anyway, let me not go there because it's not apples to apples comparison. But therein lies the problem. COVID was a big setback, in my opinion, to anyone who was a proponent of green energy for the implementation and development, because these things are currently not just unreliable, but expensive. And that would have been fine before COVID because the economies of the world were improving, were growing. The world was being elevated out of poverty in an unprecedented rate never before seen in history. Then COVID comes, every single economy is affected. And now the energy prices are causing the need for more and more cheaper sources because we can't afford the more expensive green energy. And that doesn't just mean the implementation is slowed down, but the development is slowed down. In the short term, we're going to need more and more fossil fuels. So coal, the fact that we're going back to coal is a big indicator. In the medium term, though, however, I do expect, or at least I would think, that green energy companies are looking at the opportunity where, listen, if Russia decides they're going to try to go it alone with whoever will trade with them, we see a long-term opportunity to try to fill the void. But they can't fill the void now, and therein lies the problem. But with Venezuela and Guyana, I actually think, yes, we could survive. It might not be easy for 6 months to a year, but we could survive. The problem is we just came out of the pandemic.
Well, folks, in concluding this conversation, I'll just add a couple of things. One, not only does this now delay the transition to green energy, what it also does is give the opportunity for cheaper initiatives in terms of green energy to be researched and developed. However, in doing that as well, in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, it also delays our abilities to look at other avenues further in terms of investing and developing And the word we often use is diversification. Whilst we should continue to look at it, let's be realistic. As long as we have oil and gas, we're not going to take other sectors too seriously. And finally,
therein lies the problem.
I wonder how the world leaders after COP26 are feeling this morning when they wake up and take a look at what's happening around the world with oil and gas. Must not be a very happy feeling. Anyway.
That's not important to them. They are happy that they have an excuse to not have to make hard choices on giving up fossil fuels now.
Or they're happy to say, at least we had the conference and we were able to discuss this and let the world know this is our plans. Whether or not it's going to be initiated, well, right now, it doesn't seem so anytime soon. Anyway, folks, let's take a break here.
Let me just say one thing. I think part of the reason, too, is that the European countries feel that they're being held to ransom by Russia or by the countries that produce oil and gas. So I think part of the motivation for them to go the green way is not only because it's cleaner, but also their dependency and therefore their ability to be held to ransom by these countries, i.e. Russia.
Yes. Yes, Germany wanted to be a green energy leader.
Well, there's another side of the story that I've been thinking of. I don't want to get into it right now, but this war is extremely peculiar. And I'm not going to push any conspiracy theories or put anything out there. I'll have the discussion privately, and if it's well enough with it, we'll probably have it on the program itself. But folks, let's take a break here now, and when we return, we continue the discussions this morning. Stay tuned to Talking Point here on WESN, the Content Capsule.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
The best for your baby is at dbesttoys.com. We have the best strollers, car seats, walkers, feeding accessories, playpens, cribs, clothing, and the widest range of brand name toys like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Nerf, LOL, Fisher-Price, Cocomelon, Intex pools, Amazon Fire tablets, HP and Gateway laptops, and the best bikes, scooters, skateboards, and ride-on. Visit us in-store at 7 Main Road, MacBean, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. That's dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN. This morning we were due to be joined by our guest, Mr. Clive Elder of the Communication Workers Union. Unfortunately, he's unable to join us this morning, so hopefully next week we can continue that conversation in relation to TSCT as well as the Education Facilities Company Limited. But this morning, with the time that we have left, let us now examine the latest updates in relation to the Paria Fuel Trading Company's accident in which 4 divers lost their lives. And an update for you. First of all, in relation to the Commission of Inquiry, the chairman of the Commission of Inquiry, Sir Dennis Morrison, is expected, it has not been concretized, but is expected to arrive in Trinidad on April 18th. He will be brief, he will meet with the counsel to the Commission, which is Ramesh Lawrence Maraj, and then he himself will determine the course of action going forward, and the start date. The Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, Stuart Young, made this announcement during a post-cabinet media briefing yesterday, in which he indicated that the cabinet is yet to finalize the terms of references. After that is completed, then Sir Dennis Morrison will be sworn in. Karen, that's the latest update in relation to this, but it seems as though this is being delayed. I don't want to say it's being delayed deliberately after the entire confusion between a commission of inquiry and an independent investigative panel. But some people have put that out there as a theory. I'm not pushing that theory at all. But this is really now being delayed and dragged on, because even though Sir Dennis Morrison arrives on the 18th of April, that does not mean that the commission will start anytime soon.
I think, though, if I read this morning, there were 10 guidelines as to what the Commission of Inquiry is supposed to look at, quoted in one of the papers. And it is fairly detailed and fairly comprehensive. Clearly, it's putting responsibility from the line of questioning, if that is the correct terms of reference for the this commission, as to what did the contractor, what instructions did he give to Parry? In other words, what did he expect Parry to put in place for his divers? And on the other hand, what was Parry expected to put in place on their hand to accommodate this exercise? And so a number of questions, but I think at the end of the day, commissions of inquiry usually are political in nature. And I won't say there's not a political tinge to this whole exercise. My fear is, and this has been expressed by others, including well, I won't say the name, but I think it was Mr. Ramlogan, if I'm not mistaken. But what is the end result of all of this? Is this another commission of inquiry where millions of dollars are spent, but nothing is done? And the way that the Prime Minister has stated it is as almost as he's not taking the responsibility for that. He must remember he's the one that has an understaffed DPP who cannot come out in public and complain. Mm-hmm. You cannot have a department responsible for all the criminal, except you get a private agreement with the DPP to have your own private prosecution, which is very rare. You can have a department responsible for 39 magisterial districts, how many high court matters, how many court of appeal, how many privy council, with 50 staff when it should be over 100 and something. I mean, you know, it's just a travesty in my mind. So I have difficulty with the Commission of Inquiry because I believe, like with CL Financial, which I mention all the time because I was directly involved in it, and was hoping one day to finally see that report, to see what they said. Well, say what they said about me as a minister, I will be honest with you. And nothing has come out of it. And even though the Prime Minister expressed outrage, it's collecting dust somewhere. And I'm afraid that what is going to happen, satisfy the people. They want a commission, give them the commission. And when they finish the commission, you're not going to do one darn thing about it.
Well, Karen, just
that is a waste of time.
Just two things on that. Minister of Energy and Industries, Stuart Young, yesterday actually referenced the Commission of Inquiry into the CL Financial, the entire probe into CL Financial. He referenced that in justifying the delay and the length of time into a Commission of Inquiry. But you also mentioned millions of dollars spent. And that was one of the questions, Sean, that was posed by a reporter towards the minister in relation to the budget. Has that been finalized as yet in terms of the Commission of Inquiry? And he indicated, well, as a minister, historically speaking, these are very things to actually stick a pin on. They have not finalized their budget, but they are working with the head of the public service in order to determine what are the parameters in terms of finances, and they hope to stick within those parameters.
But here is the problem. CL Financial is an investigation into what happened with, you know, a large-scale conglomerate with assets not just limited to Trinidad. what went wrong with this financial giant that just before its collapse literally bought the next financial giant in line. The current financial giant, you could say, of the country, Republic Bank, CL Financial, I believe, had 51% of their shares, something like that. What happened there? That's a big thing to unpack. That takes months and months to go over all the details, to find all of the details to ensure that you have the big picture. What we're talking about here is an accident involving a pipeline and 5 gentlemen, one of whom survived, 4 who deceased, right? Now, yes, there might be bigger questions on liability and who was ultimately responsible with regards to safety procedures, etc., etc., etc. But the genesis of it is a lot smaller. It should not necessarily even have taken as long as it is already taken to start before we could get answers. Because yes, there are a lot of people that have to be investigated. You have to do your due diligence. You have to investigate Paria. You have to investigate the contractor, LMCS. You have to investigate the employees, as much as we don't want to say it. You have to investigate it, so at the very least you could exclude any possibility of wrongdoing in whichever quarter you find that there is no wrongdoing, right? But the need to prevent this, accident investigations are not just so that people feel better at the end of the day. It's to learn from it, to prevent it. We have an energy sector. You know, we have other assets in the sea as well. This can happen again. And from the reports stating, I understand when there's a report saying that the health and safety personnel at the site felt that after an hour and 3 minutes, the chances of survival are slim. But I would beg to ask the question, why make the assumption, particularly when you pull out a survivor who has already exceeded expectations and who is saying that there are other people down there who are survivors? Now, again, we need an investigation into exactly whose call it was, why was the call made. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered, because if I was a diver or any sort of industrial worker in this country, depending on how this investigation goes, well, should I have faith that I will be rescued? This is one of the things, people want to knock American culture a lot. This is one of the things that they get right. They do whatever they have to do to ensure, even if the people are more likely than not deceased, they're not going to slow down. They're not going to not try to do whatever they can. Cut the pipe if they have to get them out of there. No, it seems as though protecting the pipe.
No.
I have to ask.
I have to put this straight into this conversation as you raised up, because attorney Gerard Ramlin presented the findings of a private autopsy by Professor Hubert Daisley on the body of Kazim Ali Jr., one of the divers who unfortunately lost his life during this accident. And the result of that autopsy, remember, this autopsy conducted on the part of the state did not give an actual time of death. According to the state, that was very difficult to determine. But Professor Hubert Daisley indicated that Kazim Ali Jr. could have been alive for up to 39 hours in the subsea pipeline. Showing a photo of the alleged timeline during the initial stages of the incident, Ramlin said an hour after the divers were sucked into the pipeline, Paria advised that they were probably deceased. The divers entered the hyperbaric chamber at roughly 2:15 p.m. At 2:45, they lost contact. Now, according to this autopsy conducted by Professor Hubert Daisley, it said that Mr. Ali would have been alive for some 48 hours plus or minus 12 hours before his body was discovered. He said that it was discovered at 6 p.m. on February 28th. The autopsy stated that the average time would have been alive was 27 hours, as he would have been alive fighting for his life. On the earliest time of death, he would have been alive in the pipeline for 15 hours and 15 minutes. And on the latest time of death, he would have been alive for 39 hours and 15 minutes. He added that the earliest time of death would have been 6 a.m. on Saturday and the latest time, 6 a.m. on Sunday. The autopsies conducted by the state, again, I stress this, did not give a time of death.
I would just like to point out that you could halve the minimum estimate and say 7 hours, and I'll still be outraged. You could drop it to 5 hours, and I'll still be outraged. Because if the implications are they were alive for hours, it doesn't have to be 10. It could be 5 hours. That should be more than enough time to figure something out if the lives of the men mattered. And the implications, and yes, I understand it might not be true. It doesn't mean anything, it's circumstantial, but the implications of the politics of the matter, right, make the situation look very bad. Very, very bad.
Okay, so Sean, you just proved the point. You just proved the point why this pariah issue is so critical, because what it is, from the information up to now that we're getting, is that at the very least, the pariah, because it was on their work site, it was on their workplace, they are responsible whether they bring on anybody onto their work site to ensure they have a safe place of work and a safe system. And the response after they were informed of it, they are not going to look good. And politically, they are going to pay a huge price, because it is for human beings. And just like what you said, Sean, 5 hours, 6 hours, what were you doing?
Yes.
You know, and I think at the end of the day, they want to delay this commission of inquiry. Well, maybe they are trying to delay it. I can't say for sure. But I could tell you at the end of the day, pariah, however you cut it, is not going to look good. In fact, they're going to look as insensitive as they did look after the incident, and continuing, because family members have been complaining that they are not getting any financial support or any support from pariah. Now, it may be because pariah doesn't want, their lawyers are telling them if you do that, then it's almost an admission of liability. But, you know, I don't know what the advice they've been given.
Well,
but
Karen,
it just looks so bad on this, on pariah's side. And at the very least, at the end of it, whoever is on that board and whoever is running, they need to go. If the findings show some liability, serious liability, which appears to be the case based on what we know up to now, that seems to be what should happen.
Well, Karen, let me just comment on 3 things. First of all, you said politically they're going to pay a price. I am not sure who is really the ones at the forefront here, whether or not be the board of pariah, for example, Chairman Newman George, who refused to comment on this situation, was in Tobago playing golf. Was it the team at pariah who were part of the entire team conducting this maintenance exercise? That you have to bear in mind as well. So politically, there is a price to pay, but I want to know the repercussions for those within the company as well. I assume that this Commission of Inquiry will determine that. Speaking of which, will the Commission of Inquiry now include the results of the private autopsy in their investigation? Because that is a rather interesting development, seeing again that the state's autopsy did not determine a time of death. And thirdly, in relation to funding for the families, providing some sort of financial support, the minister, who by the way is also an attorney at law, indicated this yesterday, and it's, Karen, as you said, it might prove liability on the part, or some form of liability on the part of pariah. The minister himself stated, well, the employers of the divers were LMCS, and as such, LMCS is the ones who should provide the support. I, as minister, indicated that pariah should provide the necessary support to the families on the day that I was there, and that would be counseling and probably some refreshments or some facilities to rest and whatnot. But generally otherwise, he made that comment clear, which according smartly, he stated it smartly as a minister, but as an attorney at law, that in itself is again trying to remove any liability.
I don't know if it's smartly as a minister.
It is, no, Sean, that's exactly the advice, legal advice he'd be given and give himself. Because what he understands is that it gives the appearance of some acceptance of liability. And he's saying, well, we are not the employers of these divers. The employer of these divers or the subcontractors. So if anybody has to give them financial support or do anything, it is they. And that is why they want to maintain, obviously, that I expect that their line of reasoning is going to be, perhaps we may have made some missteps, but the larger responsibility falls on the employer of these divers. And I believe, honestly, that one of the reasons why they were not helping them out was because the advice was given that if you do that, you are sending a message to the public that you know that you are in some way responsible.
Well, Karen, I'm so sorry to cut you short. I know you have a point to make, but WSN has to break for news on the hour. When we return, Sean will make his point and we will open up the phone lines. Stay tuned to Talking Point.
7 is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, it's for all of us in public.
Let your voice be heard. Call Madam Fix It on WESN, the only place that effectively helps you with your woes. Having problems getting onto government agencies, water woes, NIS and pension problems, potholes, and much, much more. Call me, Madam Fix It, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here on WESN. Let me fix it for you.
AM Prime on WESN, the only place from 6 to 7:30 a.m. where you can get the most analytical and thorough interviews and regional reports.
The Barbados Labour Party, led by the Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley, once again able to achieve a clean sweep in yesterday's general election.
I think a lot of people have underestimated the power of Tobago nationalism.
If the government is afraid to say it, I, Martin George, I am saying it this morning on your show, Andy, there will be no carnival before Ash Wednesday.
Grab a cup of coffee and start your day right watching AM Prime with Andy Johnson weekdays from 6 a.m. only on your content capital, WESN.
Don't keep yourself handcuffed. We continue to receive calls from members of the viewing public whose cable provider is Flow and cannot receive WESN. We advise that you unfortunately reside on the original Flow platform. If you wish to receive WESN's high-quality programming, you must contact Flow to be upgraded to the new Flow Evo platform. Call Flow now and demand your upgrade.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Point. And just before we open up the phone lines, I would like to make this last point here on the previous topic with regards to Parry. And it's very, very simple. While I understand what my colleagues were saying with regards to Stuart Young and the fact that he gave himself a very good legal argument that we have seen before, politically speaking, publicly speaking, on a humanitarian level, I feel this is a mistake. This is a mistake for his career. I would even say this is a mistake for the party because I'm sorry. It seems as though they are looking to cover or to provide cover for political appointments. And it seems as though they are prioritizing making sure that political appointees do not necessarily face the wrath of the situation as opposed to dealing with a tragedy with the respect that is deserved both for the families as well as for the country. Because this, I think, is a much bigger deal than what it has been treated as. And to say that they're going to pull the wool over our eyes and then tell us in about 5 years, well, the report can't be made public because of whatever nonsense reason that they're going to come up with at the time, I'm sorry. And it only makes the government look bad.
Well, Sean, I'm going to have to ask you to hold your horses there for 1 second because I understand what you're saying, but let's open up the phone lines, 623-9376, 622-9338. There is a call on the line with us from Pity Valley. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean, Keaton, and Karen.
Good morning.
This question is for Karen as a lawyer. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Morning.
Like you all said, Judge Ramdeen had his own private autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
Judge Ramdeen is a lawyer for the defendant.
Mm-hmm.
Like in cases, a prosecution and a defense lawyer both will bring their professional witnesses in cases. Okay, so you all said the state said the timeline was no timeline, and Judge Ramdeen went and get a private autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
So when the commission now, the inquiry start to begin, you'll be hearing both sides bringing their professional opinion. So I would like Karen to answer me in terms of cases. A jury will depend which professional witnesses are holding the weight. Now, in terms of the commission inquiry now, how they will look at it, because I will tell you, the state will bring a professional saying something else than what Judge Ramdeen
what he claimed.
Saying.
Yeah.
So I would like Karen to answer that question.
But I think a commission inquiry, of course, follows a lot of the legal proceedings, except they're not a lot of the rules that apply. But to answer you shortly, Professor Daisley is highly, highly regarded. He taught at the law school, a course there for many, many years. And he was a professor, the head of a department at the University of the West Indies Medical School. So if you're looking at gravitas, if you're looking at qualifications, if you're looking at anything, and certainly I don't see him to be a political animal at all. I think they made a good choice in Professor Daisley. So at the end of the day, with all expert witnesses, it's the quality of the expert witness, the evidence expert witness gives, and the way he stands up to cross-examination. But we cannot discount the one that Dennis Ramdeen got, because I think Professor Daisley is highly, highly regarded. In fact, on a personal level, he was the one who did the autopsy of my husband, and he was highly regarded and still very highly regarded in the profession.
Caller from Pity Valley, I hope that answers your question. But we have another call on the line from Diego Martin who joins us. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Shah, Mr. Small, and Mrs. Teixeira. How are you all?
We're doing well. We hope you're well.
I am very well. And I want to throw out the question, and I'm going to link some data points.
Uh-huh.
Is our judicial system mature enough for our citizens to have confidence in it? Why I'm opening with that? We just saw one of the charges dropped in the Marlene case. Was that some way connected to the whistleblower dog whistle that was sent by the Prime Minister when he said the judiciary is slow? No. Let me put another data point. Look how quickly the DPP has brought that to an end. Look at something that Karen has been plugging to get done, the CLICO report. Why he continues to say that he has no resources, and that is of national importance. Now, where that file is for CLICO, is this Paria commission going to be put in the same place? Will he say he had no resources to investigate it? It could be money well spent, but no end results. Let's come back to why I asked the first question. Recently, there was for a better word, a raid at the president of the CTBA, the Trinidad and Miss Haddad. The police used an audit report apparently to get a warrant that was null and void. The Emailgate issue has the DPP pronounced on that because as far as I remember, he recused himself and an honorary lady still has it. Has they made that pronouncement or are they leaving it for political reasons? So these are the questions I basically want to know.
All right,
And
caller, we have
Yes,
other
sir.
callers, so if
Okay.
you, right? All right, if that's the point. But what we'll
Thank
do,
you, caller. Thank you.
yeah, and thanks for raising that issue with Molly McDonald. We will comment on that very shortly. Reading the case is rather interesting, but we have another call in line from Tobago. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Hey, how are you doing, sir?
Oh, very good, very good. Am I on?
Yes.
you're live.
Yes.
Okay, very
Welcome
good.
back to the program.
I was hearing another conversation going on. How is my voice coming across?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little
Okay,
scratchy,
very
but
good,
yeah.
thank you. I wanted to give my comment or my opinion on the Paria situation. Now that it has gone past some days, give the families a chance to really try to come to terms with it, which will take a very, very, very long time for them, especially added now that there's information coming out that their loved ones may have stayed alive or been alive for so many hours, hoping that someone will come to rescue them.
Yes.
My opinion in this is from the very beginning has been that in these large corporations where you have a lot of money involved in situations like this, it is often better at the level where these decisions are made, where the people that are making these decisions are very much removed from the ground, the grassroots where the people actually are. So what they really see is dollars and cents. And that environment is that it's better to have total fatality in those cases where they could simply cut a check and settle with the family and just wash their hands of that issue than to have partial fatality where for the rest of that person's life, they have to keep paying a check to these families and keeps the issue alive. So in the insurance world that insures those kind of companies, it is often best to have total fatality. If the person has died, let them die and let's just cut a check and move on than to try to save a person who may now come out brain dead, damaged in some way, invalid, and the insurance company is tied to them for the rest of their lives. It's a very sad thing to hear, but I actually heard that from a truck driver, over the road truck driver who drives large 18-wheelers, that is the environment in their truck company, that if you're going to have an accident, just kind of hope for a total fatality. And because if you come out and the person is partially paralyzed and all of these sort of things, it's much more costly for the insurance company to deal with that than to deal with a total fatality. It's unfortunate, but this is an environment that we're dealing with in this capitalistic.
Very interesting point, Kola. Very interesting point. Thank you.
My only thing is I don't think that Paria is looking to have to pay anything. And therein, here's the interesting part. So if Minister Young wants to claim that the employer has to provide support, but the decision was made by Paria not to rescue. So really and truly now.
No, hold on.
We are alleged.
Yes, alleged.
alleged.
And I think we must be very careful in our conversations, the legal jargon we used, because the Commission of Inquiry has not yet started, but we can't implicate anybody. So let's be very careful of that. I want to speak about Marlene McDonald, but there is a call on the line from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Sean. Morning, Keaton.
Morning.
Morning, Mr. Fisherman.
Oh, yeah, the Fisherman. My take on this pirate thing, it caused them people for them fellas to die than to save them, you know. They cut the cost. You can look at really good, look how long 30-something days gone, and now you still at a point people to investigate.
35 days.
Really on the Caribbean fishing industry with the boat on the boat.
Yes?
They really have a war in a 2-4 going on with them fellas to see. You have to know, have a line in the business.
Mm-hmm.
When you use a vendor and you buying from the guy, you pay a price, right, for the goods.
Mm-hmm.
But when you buy a boat for yourself now and have the fellas working for you, it costs you less to pay for the fish.
Mm-hmm.
So the other guys them who have the boat now, and you got to buy from them, they're getting less for the goods. So you understand what I'm saying? So they have the war right there.
Oh, 2-4.
You understand what I'm saying?
I think so, yeah.
Right, that's my take on it.
All right, thanks, Mr. Fishman. Always good hearing from you.
Things like that are going to be more common because of the economic situation globally.
Well, I hope not. But
globally.
I want to
That's
come
what Russia
back
is.
to that very shortly because we have another caller on line from Shigonas. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
You're live. Morning, caller.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
We are hearing the echo.
Right, I finally get it all.
Okay.
Go ahead, caller, make your point.
Yeah, just talk, just talk.
I wanted to ask Mr. Shihara, why it is if we was following the American system with the CLECO matter, why did we lend the money without interest, and why did not we take a haircut as the Americans did? If you follow that.
I don't. Karen, did you hear what the caller stated?
I heard something about a haircut, but
I heard something
I know he's not talking about a barber.
I heard something about a haircut as well. Caller, I'm not hearing you too clearly. Could you just repeat
Why
what
did we not charge interest, and why was not a haircut applied?
Why do we not charge interest? And I can't hear the last part.
I can't hear the
The
last
haircut, I'm not sure what he means by the haircut, but I know what he means about the interest.
Right.
Where some people, and that's a whole other thing, which I can answer, and I'll be happy to answer, but I don't think we have the time to look at that at this point in time. There was something that the first caller said I wanted to correct him on, with the regards to the DPP. Again, we don't have time, so maybe a question and answer might be good on the next occasion.
So, thank you. What we'll do is that Karen will respond to you. We'll give her an opportunity to respond next week when she joins us on the program, because we do only have about 10 minutes
because
left.
there are too many questions and
it's a lot.
Need to be responded to.
But very quickly, this case in relation to Marlene McDonald, it's amazing how this slipped under the carpet of everybody, and this happened just so I don't think anybody was really following this too much, and this is the latest update. The DPP under Section 90 of the Constitution, which allows the DPP to discontinue any criminal proceedings undertaken by him or anyone else at any stage before judgment is delivered, has informed Chief Magistrate Maria Busby Earl Cadell that he is discontinuing one of the charges against former Minister Marlene McDonald.
Not all.
He
does have the power, according to the Constitution, but he didn't state why he's discontinuing
Can I just say on that, because I read the article before I came on the show.
Go ahead, Karen.
And he obviously is satisfied that there was no public mischief or misadministration in the award of a contract for the building of a community center for 32 million. However, the key ones have remained. The key ones are the issues of the fraud, the allegations of fraud, which has to do with that company or whatever she had in which her common-law husband was involved.
Yes.
All
Michael
the key
Carew.
major ones have remained intact, and he's following that. But the first one, the evidence does not show wrongdoing that could stand up in a court of law. But the other ones, which are the main ones, which are the ones we all know about, he has not removed them. So when I saw the headline today, DPP removes them, I mean, that was a very misleading headline if I ever saw a misleading headline. So it caused me to read the article. That is so unfair to the DPP too. I always feel like I'm defending him because, you know, he can't speak out, you know, and, you know, this injustice is done to him as though he dropped charges against Marlene because somebody whispered in his ear. It's not true.
Karen, hold on 1 second. I am not in any way trying to dispute what you're stating. I'm not sure what article you read, but the article I read, the headline says DPP drops misbehavior charge against ex-minister Marlene McDonald. And that's what, and the article goes on to state
He dropped what?
Misbehavior charge against Marlene McDonald. So that is the charge of misbehavior in public office. But the article does state that the 3 conspiracy to defraud, 2 charges of misbehavior in public office and 1 for money laundering still stand. So it's not a matter of having to defend Marlene McDonald or the Director of Public Prosecutions, Roger Gaspard. It's not a matter of that. Or even in this case, the reporting, because the headlines is kind of clear. The fact is, whether or not he stated it in the case, the article does not give that. And if you're stating that, okay, he's satisfied that there is no evidence to continue the case against misbehavior in public office, all right, but that needs to be stated. That's the key and critical point. That has to be stated, and that should be stated on his part.
Keaton, you very well know, because you are in the media, and I have been told, a lot of people just read the headlines. You know what people are going to do? They read the headline, hey, they let go Marlene. Yeah, they let go Marlene. They should not have done a headline like that, right? Because the headline was very, I stick to that. But it caused me to read it. But when I saw that, it certainly would give people who do not read the papers, but read headlines, Marlene Gatway, the DPP let her go. Right? So
Karen, even with that headline,
with my position on that.
Even with that headline, if you don't know how many charges are against her, all you're going to see is what the headline says. So if you're not aware of the details, it seems as though she got let off. So even that headline does not necessarily... Now, if they said one of the charges, you see, to give it context, that is a problem I've had with media, just regularly. Context,
or misbehavior
I understand a headline has to be short.
Fraud charges remain.
Listen,
why don't you put the fraud charges remain
in a sub-headline?
Then say that. But the way you put it,
this is an
and people
online
don't read,
article.
They will read the headline and say, hey, Marlene, like the DPP, somebody told me
I
let her go.
understand that. But what I'm stating, I'm the first individual on this panel who will critique the media. I'm an individual who has written articles. I'm the first person who will critique the media. In this instance, I'm trying to be as fair as possible because, one, it's an online article. And in my experience, to my knowledge, sometimes the online articles, the headings
it depends on the paper.
Differ to the paper. But in this instance, I have to say that it was very specific in terms of the quantity, whether it is 1 charge or 2 charge. It was also specific of the charge. Yes, I agree, maybe in a subheading, you should probably put the other charges remain. But
usually, the headline might differ, but to some extent, the message is going to be more or less the same, even if they differ.
We'll lay it to rest, but I can tell you something, Keaton. When I read that, my initial response is, you mean all those charges against Marlene McDonald have been dropped? And I tell you, and I'm a lawyer, and I'm not uneducated. And I thought when I read that headline, I thought that, so that force caused me to read. I said, oh, that's what it means. So they could have said, what could have said fraud charges remain in place against Marlene. And then people will read, although the DPP has dropped the charge against so-and-so, now that is a fairer and more correct representation.
You answer the question.
It doesn't matter, because it makes the point arguing over it. Because
no, Karen, the question that you're implying was answered by your own statement. The headline got you to read the article. The end.
But me to
It will
read
get everybody.
Yes, and it's all up to the reader. It is up to the reader. I don't. In this instance, my criticism of the reporting. In this instance, my only criticism is whether or not the DPP stated his reasons. That is not stated in the article. That is my one major criticism of the article, because this is what we're discussing in the program. But as everybody
did the DPP not state it, or did the papers not report it?
Right, that is what I'm stating. My criticism of this article is if the DPP did indeed state the reason why the article didn't state it. That is what I said. That's my criticism of this article. The article needs to state that. The article needs to state that.
Anyway, we all good friends, but we have to disagree on that one. I take umbrage on his part because he's so understaffed. And let me tell you, you look in the United States or any country, you know one way to stop a department from proceeding? To starve them of funds, starve them of staff. He's starved of staff and he's starved of funds. How is he dealing? That's why CL Financial is sitting on top, and that's why I'm taking it personally, because I feel he cannot deal with CL Financial because he simply does not have the staff to deal with what would be white-collar crime. And that is what, for me, I guess I take it personally. Please, Mr. DPP, release that CL Financial report.
Well, one of the other things, to segue, understaffing is one way to prevent any sort of matters. Political appointments. Political appointments, we do have to now look at the situation. I want to come back to Parry. I want to make it clear. I am not blaming Minister Young. I'm not saying he's liable. I'm not saying he should be fired over this. What I am saying, though, is that he's doing damage control. That's what it seems like. Because the people who are more directly related to the matter seem to be incapable of communicating even the minimal that the government does. And he's doing damage control on behalf of them. And I think this is just an example that we need to re-examine political appointments for some of these positions that have serious implications.
I mean this with absolute respect to you, Sean, but we have to understand how politics works. And again, this is not a defense to anybody. I'm just stating, idealistically, I get what you're saying, but realistically, if you were in the position of Stuart Young, if you were government minister, you would also have to do some damage control. That's the thing. And I'm just stating that it doesn't look good for the public, and the public doesn't like it.
It depends on the political strategy of the party. And if the political strategy of the party, which seems to be the strategy of all of our parties, except for the newest one in Tobago, because they haven't shown any sort of action on that part. So on the long-term political parties, their strategy seems to be protect, deny, cover up on everything. Show me one instance of either party saying, this person did something wrong, we will throw them to the wolves because of what they did. We are not going to defend them. Because how many times was Marlene rehired? How many times was she rehired?
As we have a couple minutes left, Sean, again I tell you, I can't name one instance at the top of my head right now as I'm sitting in this chair and we're all still frazzled after that particular conversation we just had. I will just tell you that politically, damage control has to be done. Hold on. In relation to that, I agree political appointments is one thing, protection is another, all right? But damage control in any instance has to be done. Whether or not it's done good, we could have that debate.
If you want to be a political appointee at a high position, you should be willing to bear some responsibility of your position. But I'll just say it again. This situation is not like other situations. And it runs the risk to the party. And if the party can't see that, well, then I hope they don't have a surprise Pikachu face when whatever hits them in the aftermath. But then again, the Commission of Inquiry might not even reveal the findings and we'll never know. So,
anyway, I hope that it does. That's all. I just hope that it does. I hope that we learn from our past. You know, Karen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. As you mentioned, we are all good friends. That does not mean all good friends have to agree all the time. Disagreeing sometimes leads to constructive arguments, and it also allows for different perspectives to be heard. And that is probably why we are good friends, because we are able to do that. So, Karen, thank you very much for joining Sean and I on Talking Point this morning. Always a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, and have a good weekend. Yesterday's Friday. Sometimes I forget. Have a good weekend, and I enjoyed the little bit of animated discussion. It's always good that we are able to agree agreeably.
Definitely.
Disagree agreeably. Sorry.
Definitely. Actually, I thought yesterday was Monday, so I'm still kind of, but anyway, Sean Michael Small, it was a good way to end the week, a good discussion, I suppose, to end the week.
I'll just say it one more time. Pray to whoever you believe to, because the situation in Ukraine, it's bad now, it could get worse, and the fallout could affect all of us. So please, please pray for Ukraine.
Pray for Ukraine, but pray for the rest of the world as well, because Ukraine is in the midst of it. But I have to be straightforward with you. The hatred, the selfishness, and the negativity that is being spewed from all corners of the world, we have to pray and hope that some light, some shining light, forces its way into the times that we're facing. But for now, folks, have a great weekend. Enjoy, keep well, keep safe. Sean Michael Small and myself, Keaton Shaw, was joined by Ms. Karen Nunes to share this morning. This has been Talking Points on WESN, the Content Capital. We'll see you on Monday. Bye-bye.